So is that the best stay you've ever had?
Ever had?
Yeah.
In reverse, maybe. So we're going lake trout fishing. That's got to be a Coke too. I got you that time. Check this out. That's a spool of kokanee right there.
In this week's episode, we're in the canyon section talking about summer kokanee, some of the details and nuances we didn't cover in our previous kokanee episode. Summertime's just a little bit different. I'm going to tease as much out of Colton as I can.
So, you know, not all fishing trips go to plan. We got out here this morning and I could not get my remote to connect to my trolling motor. I don't know if my battery's dead or if there's something wrong with the trolling motor, but there is a reason we're going backwards, and it's to get to that slow enough speed to fish kokanee, because going forward on my boat, I'm going 3.5 miles an hour, and that's way too fast for kokanee, so we're making do to make this video.
So how far back do we have our Dodger from our downrigger this morning?
So we're 40 to 60 feet back from the downrigger weight. You do not have to go that far. This time of year, you could even go 15, 20 feet behind, and as we get later on in the year, we can get closer and closer to that ball.
How does depth play a factor into that?
Normally, the deeper you are down, the closer you can get. It's not, doesn't hold always true, but that's, you know, the case most of the time. Because the further you are in depth, the closer your lure can be to the weight.
So tell me the difference in Dodgers.
Okay, so all different styles of Dodgers, shapes. They basically all do the same thing. They give us little side-to-side action on your lure, and they're used as an attractant for fish. So with some of these, you control them a little faster or a little slower, depending on the shape. But one's really not better than another. They all do the exact same thing.
Does matching colors matter or anything like that? Like, you got a pink lure on, do we want a pink?
No, there's some people that want to match, but you don't have to. We use a lot of moon jelly, sun jelly tape, which are yellow or blue. We use a lot of silvers. Silvers go with anything, but no, you do not have to match your Dodgers.
So what are some of the different colors that you're using in summertime here?
Summertime, I mean, the colors vary day to day, so I wouldn't stick with one color. We've got a pink on, we've got a yellow on, we've got a combination of the two. But yeah, I wouldn't stick with color, you know, for a specific time of year. It can vary day to day with kokanee.
You guys do pre-rigged.
Yep, we sell a lot of our lures pre-rigged in squids, spinners, spinner squids.
When you're connecting your Dodger to your baits, what pound line are you using? How heavy a line are you using for that?
Anything from 10 to 20 normally. All of our products come tied with 14-pound vicious.
And what's the distance? If you're rigging it yourself, what's the distance from the Dodger to the lure, to the squiddy, or a spinning tornado or something like that?
Okay, so spinners, you can go a little further back than normal. You can go 12 to 24 inches, and the reason you can go further back on something with a spinner blade is it's got its own action for itself. So you do not need that side-to-side action with the Dodger. Now with a plain squid, it doesn't have no action. If you were just to put it in the water, it would troll straight. So you want to really get that 9 to 12 inches probably from the Dodger, and that all depends on the size of Dodger, how fast you're going, but theoretically you're going to be 9 to 12 inches.
When you're tipping, you're using a gold maggot.
Yep, we use gold maggots.
Right? Is there any? Do you want to match colors with that in any way?
No, the only two colors I run is white and pink. Some people match colors, some people do contrasting colors. They'll put a pink maggot on a yellow squid, or they'll put a chartreuse maggot on a white squid. But it's there for scent.
Is there a specific hook that works best for kokanee?
Any octopus style, we use a sickle hook. It's got a little different bend to it, but it is similar to an octopus style hook.
Is there any advantage to location in the summertime? We're fishing the canyon section today of the reservoir. Is there any parts of the reservoir or regions that the kokanee tend to be in the summertime versus any other time?
No, kokanee are all scattered out. They do school up. Another thing that's interesting is most kokanee school up in age class. So if all you're doing is catching, 10 to 12, 10 to 13 inch fish, you may want to move locations, move depth. You may not have to move far, but if you want to find bigger fish, once you start catching bigger fish, stay on those, because you could move and you could be back into a small school again.
Let's talk a little bit about finding the thermocline using a fish finder.
So when you get a little warmer, we're 65 degrees here. When we get into that 70 degree surface temp, you will be able to see a fuzzy line basically on your fish finder where it's separating the two densities of the water column.
So kokanee want a very specific temperature. So you're looking for that thermocline and it shows up as a fuzzy line. Does it show up like that on like a live scope as well, or?
No, this will be your 2D fish finders. You'll definitely be able to see like a separation. And your kokanee are going to be hanging out there. That's where your kokanee are going to be within a 15, 20 foot area at that point.
What's the best time of day to find, when's the kokanee bite, what time of day?
Early morning normally. You can get them also in the evenings, but theoretically mornings. Early.
What's early?
Sun up to 9, 10 o'clock.
What speeds are you generally looking to troll in the summertime? Is it any different than springtime?
Not really. I mean, my standard speed is like 1.4 to 1.8. In the fall, you could potentially slow down a little bit, even 1 mile an hour, plus or minus 0.2. But for the most part, it's 1.4 to 1.8. Yeah, so kokanee, they're, soft jawed, soft mouthed. And if you're running a lot stiffer rod, the hook will pull through them every time, and you'll actually rip holes in their mouth, to where the softer rods, playing that drag a lot helps, and it just helps you.
Getting bottom?
No, we're getting a fish.
All right. So as you're playing it, is there anything you're going to do to not try to rip that hook out?
We're going to if he wants to run, let him run. Yeah.
Do you have the drag set really loose?
Yeah, so it's set fairly loose here. And that way, if he wants to take the drag, he can. And then when he's coming at you, just start reeling. We've got a little 4.5 inch Wonder Bread Dakota Dodger that we make. And then this is the yellow with pink beads spinning tornado.
How often are you changing depths with your downrigger?
Not very often. I never really keep a downrigger at the same depth. I always stagger them at least 5 feet apart. So if you're fishing, 4 rods, you should be able to fish a 20-foot water column. You would have one at 40, 45, 50, and 55. That's what I do. Some people leave them at the same depth, but I like to stagger them and I can cover more of the water column. Okay, so what this here is it's called a stacker clip or stacker release. And you basically put out your first rod on the downrigger weight, clip it down, send it down about 10 feet. Then you attach this stacker clip to the downrigger cable, and you can put 2 rods on one downrigger. So we'll send these down.
When you're stacked though, when you get a strike, it'll move both rods. Is there a way to know which rod is the one that's hooked up?
The one that's moving the most.
That works. So you'll see them both move, but one will have a little more action to it. Is that right?
Yeah, and what happened with this last fish that we caught is it actually popped it off the downrigger, and you know, you started seeing the rod doing way different movement, started coming to the surface. The line did.
What depth have we found them at this morning?
So we caught that one at 40 feet. I am marking a bunch in that 60, 65 foot range right now. They could be pup lake trout, but they're looking cokish on the fish finder. So we just moved everything down.
Any tips to keep your fish fresh in summertime? Temperature's a little bit warmer. You want your kokanee to taste good when you keep them on it.
Ice. Throw ice in your live well, throw ice in your cooler, and just put them right on ice. Yes, some anglers will bleed them out. I don't know if that's necessary, but I would definitely keep them as cold as possible throughout the day while you're fishing.
What's your favorite way to cook kokanee?
Oh, there's so many different ways, but I don't know. Recently, we've liked them smoked into, like kokanee candy is what they call it. A little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of maple syrup, and we just smoke it slow and long and turn it into like not quite a jerky, but it's just a sweet treat.
Just so we're clear, I like mine grilled, blackened. Generally, sometimes I'll throw them in the air fryer. Works really, really well. But you might want to put the air fryer outside, just saying. At least that's what my wife tells me. I sat down with fisheries biologist Jordan Detlor this week to talk about catch and release mortality rates of kokanee. Super interesting stuff on some of the research he's been doing. Check it out.
Fisheries managers here at the Gorge, as well as anglers, have had the question for a while. What is the catch and release mortality for kokanee? And there's a lot of ideas out there, and people will throw a lot of numbers out too, but it's not something that has been studied yet. It hasn't really been evaluated in a scientific setting. So my project was essentially a literature review to see what recent studies have done to evaluate catch and release mortality for other species. Obviously, like I said, that hasn't been done for kokanee. And then try to design a study that would work to evaluate catch and release mortality on the gorge. It might be a specific issue here at the gorge. In my research, I found that a study that looked at discard rates for kokanee in Idaho, the discard rates were only like 10% or less than 10%. So we know just in the last, what we've looked at in the last 12 years, the 2 surveys that we've done, here at Flaming Gorge, our kokanee catch and release rate is anywhere between 20 and 55%. So probably a lot more. Like I said, in Idaho, that study that I found, it was 10%. With the recent, fluctuations in kokanee here at Flaming Gorge, and most recently the population decline, or the decline in abundance and lower catch rates, we're trying to figure out, all the pieces to the puzzle. Is, angler catch and release mortality driving the kokanee population? Probably not, but is it part of the picture, and could it be having an impact on the population fluctuations? Yeah, that's likely. So this is a question that we've had for a while, a question that anglers have had for a while, and again, it is kind of unique to Flaming Gorge that for whatever reason here we have a pretty high discard rate, and so we want to know what the number is. Like, of those fish that are being released, how many can we expect to survive, and how many can we expect not to make it? They've become more and more popular, so there's an increasing demand for them, and so it's kind of increasing the the demand for us to understand and answer these questions. You know, why do they do this? What is the mortality rate when they're released? All important questions to answer. They have very soft mouths that can be ripped very easily. They have small scales that slough off with minimal handling. So they just seem to be a very sensitive species of fish. If you're gonna catch and release, you know, you don't want to take them out of the water. You don't want to handle them really, and that's why it's challenging, because you got to get the hook off of them. How do you do that without stressing that fish out and potentially inducing mortality? And again, that's why we need to do this study, why we need to answer this question, so that we can say, you know, definitively, you know, at this temperature, if you're going to catch and release, you're killing this percentage. Or maybe we find that it isn't an issue. You know, we think that it is based on, you know, anecdotal observations, but we really need to get that number to do this study to say definitively, like, this is what it is, because that's really the kind of the driving question behind this. Like, kokanee as a species, are they? Is it ethically acceptable and biologically sustainable to utilize kokanee as a catch and release fishery? That's really the question we're trying to answer. So from the research that I did, I think it would be helpful to anglers to understand the temperature selectivity of kokanee. They wanted to stay at about 44 degrees Fahrenheit to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Temperature is just such a huge driver in terms of where kokanee are going to be and where you can target them.
When I'm passing through Manila, I love to stop at Sweet and Bubbly. They have specialty drinks, lunch specials, and breakfast burritos. It's a grab-and-go food truck, so grab some lunch, grab a drink, and go on the boat. This series is made possible by Utah Tourism and the Flaming Gorge Chamber of Commerce.